So thank you everybody for joining us, all the participants and the review committee. Oh, where's Mike Salmon?
Oh yeah, we need the other co-chair.
For the next, we'll are you gonna ping him, Melissa?
I'll ping him.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get started. So thank you everybody for joining us for round 1.5. So we wanted to do a few things in this kind of interim, and I'm just going to quickly go over the agenda and then we'll dig right in. So the select board is going to vote on what we're calling the non-competitive grant slate. And so we just want to let this committee know what is currently being discussed to go on that slate. And we want to let the public in on that and to hear what it is we're talking about. This is more of an FYI for this committee because this is just stuff that needs to be done, or that we're going to bypass this committee voting on. It's just going to go straight to the select board. Then we are going to update and talk about the process for round 1. Then I really want to get feedback from everybody on what worked and didn't work on round 1. We're going to open up to the public because I really want also the public's comment on what worked and didn't work. Again, I'll encourage everybody to advertise, tell everybody they know, and we can discuss also how to get more feedback from folks so that we can then next time we meet, make some revisions to how we go forward. And also at that time, we'll talk about our timeline. Any questions before we get started? And just a minute to thank John Danskoyak for his time on this committee during the first round. For those of you who do not know, the new co-chair is Mike Salmon, who hopefully will be joining us shortly. And I think I'm gonna turn it over to either Tyler or Melissa to go over what we have so far for the non-competitive slate.
Sure, I'll have Tyler, if you've got that handy, we'll just kind of walk through it. So essentially the first part of the non-competitive is just continuing some of the things that we funded that are related to COVID. So renewal of Zoom licensing, additional contingency for any outbreaks that we might need some additional support, anything around kind of remote work, hybrid, and then obviously we've got some continuation of the communications that we've been using through COVID, and then a placeholder for potential additional enhancements that we might need for OpenGov. That might be on the high side. It's an estimate at this point. If we don't need it, we'll release it later on in the process. New to what we are adding is a proposal from CDICR from Lloyd. He's been working with Tyler and Devin and Sarah Kaplan on a proposal around language access services. So I know that they're looking to engage with a consultant first, and then they're anticipating that likely will lead to the creation of a FTE. I think the estimate here is coming from Medford, correct, Tyler?
Yes, it is.
So so we have an estimate for an FTE. Then we have, when we went for the first round of non-competitive, we had only put a year's worth of salary expenses. So we've got through the remainder of the grant, the salary expenses for Tyler to help us administer the grant. And then we also have a placeholder for an end of the grant cycle. We're going to need to have an audit, and we need to fund an audit. And then we also, any FTE that is on the grant, we need to carry benefits. So we've got estimates for benefits for those the items that are in gray. So right now we're at $1.9 million in the non-competitive. We've been talking internally about a proposal around premium pay. We are currently surveying other communities and what they're doing, and hope to have a proposal ready for consideration within the next few weeks. But knowing that it likely would result in some additional kind of negotiations and fine tuning, it may take a little bit longer to implement.
And I'm just going to add that in terms of the FTE, some of the proposals, there were really only, I think, separating out the school department, which is completely separate. There were only 2 proposals that had positions in them that would require FTE. And one of those proposals actually included the FTE in their proposal, and the other didn't, not FTE, excuse me, fringe. My apologies, fringe in the proposal, and the other didn't. And this is a learning point for us, which is in the future, we will be very clear in the proposal process that if anybody is requesting funding for a position, it needs to include the fringe in their budget. So that was something we missed, and that's why we're going to do it here, but we hope to remedy it going forward. So I just wanted to explain that. Did I get that right, Melissa?
Yeah, that was it.
Or Tyler?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Does anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts from the committee about this? Yes, Arthur. You have to unmute yourself, Arthur.
My apologies. How can we have an audit and we haven't spent any money yet?
So
That
we're
audit
budgeting,
is,
we're
oh,
budgeting
sorry.
for an audit. Sorry. We're budgeting for an audit because we're required to have one at the end of the grant. So we're just trying to capture that cost so that we don't get caught off guard at the end, realizing we should have put money aside for it.
It's for 2025, Arthur.
2025.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Great question. Anything else from any other? Yes, Jenny.
Just on the COVID tests, are you receiving funding for that separately? I'm just curious because.
So
Well,
we currently have a contingency in the first round of non-competitive. So that's why we put an estimate for COVID contingency in 24, but not defined. Because we're not sure if we'll need it, but we have a contingency just in case, and we don't know what category it would go in if we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's just like a catch-all.
Yes.
So the reason you see the separate line items is because also with the, and again, Melissa or Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong, but with the CARES funding there, we had actually had separate line items. There was money in separately for testing and for other uses. And rather than have them line item like that, we just put it all together in COVID contingency so that the head of Department of Public Health has a lot more flexibility on how to use that, because it might be that we really want to spend that money on vaccines and we don't really need to do testing at the same level we were doing before, or maybe we need to do more PE. This gives her the flexibility rather than having it really adhere to a line item.
I like that. That's good. I just wanted to confirm in case there was some other vehicle for receiving that support.
Well, and also I think otherwise, why would, it wouldn't make sense why you're seeing those separate line items 6 and 7. That's how they ended up there in the first place.
Okay.
Exactly. This was just mirroring exactly what was coming from that CARES continuation that we approved in January. So that they're blank, but they're there just to sort of give you a sense of what was included last time. Because this, it's CARES continuation, and we'll probably dub this CARES continuation part 2.
Okay. And then can I ask another question, Miriam?
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay. Just, I remember that we were talking about like IT, like enhancements to IT in the first round. And do we feel like that's significantly covered at this point? There was sort of like digitization, modernization, from what I recall. There wasn't like a part 2 to that?
So we did a lot of upgrades to our existing infrastructure through CARES. And so that really did cover IT, most of their needs. So now we're just talking about renewals. I think the issue will be, at the end of this grant cycle, trying to absorb the Zoom licenses. That's going to be pretty significant at the end of the grant cycle. And then, we did buy a lot of equipment through CARES, laptops and things like that. At this point, Fung has not identified any additional needs beyond what we've captured in here. So, it could be that the contingency is used to help kind of address any additional needs that might come up.
Okay.
And the other thing too is I have been working with Bong and IT on the revamp of the new website. And so likely at some point I'll meet with her just to make sure that, she's aware round 2 is coming and that we can look at funding other needs as appropriate.
I see. Okay. Yeah, it seems like a good non-competitive type of budget item, but okay.
And I do want to speak a little bit to the language access. For those that don't know, I want to remind everybody that there was a warrant article that passed at the last town meeting. So this speaks also to that warrant article. So this is really something that has to be done, which is one of the reasons why, I think we all think it's a good equity important title, like this Title 9 issue, title what?
Title
Somebody
6.
correct. Thank you, Title 6. There's so many numbers.
There, yes. I had to remind myself of that before this meeting, so don't feel bad.
It's really something we need to do. And so this seemed like a good, and I applaud Melissa and Tyler for thinking that and putting it here, because I totally agree 100% that this is the right place for us. Anything else?
Brian had his hand up, but I don't know if we answered his question.
No, we must have answered. All right. So you have to make the screen smaller, Tyler, because the agenda on I can make my own screen smaller. Okay, great.
Oh.
So Tyler and Melissa are gonna give us a update on where we're going on in terms of process for round 1.
So we are currently mid-draft on outreach to the round 1 of recipients. And obviously, given that the budgets were substantially revised, we're going to need them to submit revised scopes. Several $1 million project request then turned into $100,000 project request. That's a completely different project. And I think that there are.
I just want to interject really quick. We haven't reached out to the community applicant or awardees yet. We're still working with town council just to have a formalized letter that we're going to send to solicit that information. So I just wanted to put that in there. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I was getting there. And so, we're town council is looking at that language. Tyler also has completed another quarterly report, and that's given him a lot of insight in terms of information he's going to need from the recipients for reporting purposes. So we're trying to use that both for the letter, but then also for we're working on grant agreements. We're trying to have a template for a grant agreement. We're kind of our starting point is using the Norfolk County grant agreement as a template, and then kind of adding some Brookline specific information that we would need. So the letter would be the first step, and then the grant agreements would be the second step. And then internally, we're also working with the comptroller's office on just establishing budgets in Munis and the best way to help us with the tracking. So that's where we are.
And I would add too that for town departments that receive funding, it's a slightly different process, because it's Tyler and Melissa who are going to be, they don't need the same amount of information, because that money's coming through a already existing financial system set up to do reporting. And so some of that process will be slightly different for town departments.
Yes, thank you for adding that.
Arthur, you look like you might have a question.
I do. Melissa and Tyler, I don't mean to, make work for you guys, seriously, but would it not be helpful if you just sent out a little note to the recipients saying, here is the process going forward? Like the Black and Brown Club, who are novice, are sort of saying, not that they're sort of saying, they're saying, well, Arthur, when does this thing kick in? What's the next step? And I've spoken with Melissa already, but it would just be nice if the town could directly communicate with them, just to relieve them of their anxieties, hearing it from the 6th floor.
Sure, we can add something to the outreach letter that would accomplish that for sure.
Yeah.
Melissa, when, just out of curiosity, because this makes me think, Arthur, it's a great point. And the question is the outreach letter a week away or 3 weeks away? Because maybe if it's 3 weeks away, I can draft like a 3-line congratulations. We are working on next steps. We'll be in touch with you shortly, just so they know, you know what I mean? And we can just email that out to all the winners. But if you think we're close, I can wait. But if it's going to be more than a few weeks, we can do something that's a little bit not promising anything, but just communicating.
I mean, I think we're in the middle of town meeting, so I don't want to commit resources from town council's office. But I can get you an answer on that on Tuesday when we I'll check it. I'll make sure to check in with Joe.
All right, thank you. Because Mike and I can send the co-chairs congratulate you, or the ARPA review committee congratulates you, and somewhere. Yeah, great. Thank you, Arthur.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions or suggestions? All right, I got to get my notebook out, because this is the part where I really want to hear about what worked and what didn't work. I am not the kind of person, by the way, that gets, can I say this on a public meeting? My undies in a bunch if you have comments or criticisms about the process. I want to know, because I want us to, keep what we liked, and I want us to fix what we can fix. And I'll tell you the 2 things that I have already identified personally. And then I'm going to turn it over to you all. So the first thing I think is the timeline, right? We were under a lot of time pressure, and I think the warrant articles and all of that kind of got in the way a little bit. And so when we do the timing for the next round, we're going to give ourselves a bigger runway, and we're going to think about what else is happening in the town as we roll out the timeline. The second, so that's something to improve and change. The thing, and maybe that's what we'll go around, and I'll just ask you to give me at least one thing you can think of to improve and or change, and one thing that you think went really well. I'll take more, but if you can at least offer that. For me, the thing that I think went really well, I got a lot of positive feedback, was how transparent we were. I heard over and over again, people really appreciated being able to follow the whole process, having everything available on the website. I got just lots and lots of kudos on that. So I think that was really great that we could do that. So now who wants to go next? And that includes everyone, Melissa and Tyler, you too.
I'll kick it off, Miriam. Tyler, let me just firstly say I love your mustache.
Thank you.
That is the best thing I've seen since this committee has met.
Only his?
I needed that today. Thank you.
Yes. And hello,
Not the
Mike
only
Simon.
mustache, after all.
He's
I'm
trying
not
to be
the
like
only
you,
one.
Mike.
Yeah.
The scoring worksheets, which is problematic. I mean, we all know that. And I know they were pulled together really quick. And I'm not criticizing you, Tyler. It's just they just didn't work. So we know we need to get better at that the next time.
Well, one of them wasn't even Tyler's, so but
okay, well,
but still, yeah,
we've all been there and tried to make these things, and it just didn't work. So yeah, either a spreadsheet like an Excel thing or a fillable PDF or something next time. The other thing that and I didn't know John wasn't going to be here, because now I'll call him and talk to him about this. I guess I didn't appreciate that he went ahead and scored all of the submissions when we only did our area. I feel like that gave him a certain advantage. So I guess I would suggest either everyone score everything, or everyone just stick to their lane. So otherwise, everything worked great. And it was great to work with you folks. Miriam, you did a great job herding the cats. That's not easy. And you kept us moving ahead. And I am very grateful to that. And I cannot say enough about how great Melissa and Tyler are and were. And this town is so incredibly lucky to have folks like you doing what you do. And I work with town governments for a living, and I have no problem saying that you guys are among the best. So I'm happy to be back for round 2 and look forward to working with Mike Sandman once again. That'll be a joy for me. So thank you.
You muted, Miriam.
I sent you a little chat, Brian, just so you take a peek. All right, who wants to go? Thank you very much. But I would have to agree on all counts. Next, who wants to go next? Don't make me call on you.
I want to hear what everyone else has to say, because I have thoughts, but I want to.
I see Jenny has unmuted
I'll go
herself.
next. It's fine. All right. I'll start with maybe positives and then things to change. It's a little plus delta exercise, right? All right. So on the plus side, I see you got it. I was in AmeriCorps when I started my career, so plus delta. Anyway, all right. So I love the spreadsheet. That was really, I do think, definitely the sort of transparency of everything was really important, both to how we interacted, but also how the public could interface with us. But I think that spreadsheet, the master list of everything, was very useful, both using it on my own and then also the sort of shared document that we had going on. So that I really appreciated that, and I hope we continue to do it that way. These are like simple things, but I'm just going to give them as positive feedback. I think that having the ARPA email, one central place for any correspondence, was also a very smart thing that we chose to do and helped to kind of streamline communications. I really appreciated all of our discussions. I thought they were thoughtful and everybody got a chance to communicate. We also had people from the public participating. I liked the way that we designed these meetings. I also appreciated that when we had to go overtime, wasn't assumed that we could stay, but we would ask and we would all agree that it was okay. And then I absolutely appreciated your leadership, Miriam, and also Melissa and Tyler's leadership throughout. And just the overall support, this feeling that we were really moving together in the same direction in a very short period of time. So all of that was excellent, excellent work. I think we were on the things to change. We were definitely compressed for time. And then I think there were sort of just like 3 categories of things that I would say in the future, I would like it to be a little more consistent. The first one is how we looked at criteria. I think that got a little sloppy in places where we weren't always sticking to what we had originally said was the grant criteria, and particularly around equity, but not limited to that, where we got in some like good discussions, but I think we weren't sticking back with what is the original criteria for this program. I totally agree with Brian. I think staying in the lane is important, or agreeing that we're not going to stay in our lane and everybody does the same thing. And that's the last thing, is I think everybody should have the same script that we're working from. So like some of us did a little extra background work because we probably had time or we knew people. And there were like these outside conversations that were informing some of our decision making. But I kind of think we all should be doing that the same way. Anytime I've done grant reviews, there's always like a script of additional questions or follow-up that we ask potential grantees. And I would like to see that codified into a more consistent process so we're all on the same page. But overall, that was like an A+.
Thank you. Very, very helpful and useful.
Can I just say, I'm new to this. I'm John's replacement. Is that the right word? Substitute, whatever. A couple things. First of all, looking at it from the outside, coming into this process, I thought the spreadsheet was just magnificent. It was so easy to get a sense of what you were doing that it was very, very helpful to do that. Following up on Jenny's comment and Brian's about sticking to one's own lane. Let me just say, I want to stick to my lane because I don't want to do anything extra. So John apparently did a great deal of extra work, and that honestly, that's not my way. I hope to focus on what I'm supposed to focus on very thoroughly, but beyond that, you're right. I agree with Jenny's comment.
Thank you, Mike. Arthur, you ready to unmute? Gotta unmute still.
Yeah, right.
There you
Okay.
go.
Okay. I just I said at the last meeting that I was very, very appreciative, okay, of Melissa and Tyler, and also John Van Scoyac, because at some point I was totally lost in the dark in terms of what I should be doing and what sort of guidelines I should be following, and Miriam too. I shouldn't forget her as well, because there I am, calling, people at 8 o'clock in the morning, and calling Tyler at all hours, and Melissa as well, and just having someone to reach out to, okay, to put me on the right rails was a tremendous help, and I mean that. But I think that, and I'm going to say this, and I hope everybody hears it. You have no idea what the $50,000 grant to the Black and Brown Men's Club has meant. And they only got $50,000. And that's the smallest chunk of any group that applied for a grant. And of course this was a planning grant, but that has just injected a level of excitement and pleasure and encouragement. Man, that's the first Black group that's ever gotten a grant from the town of Brookline. And it really has opened them to thinking about all the possibilities. And you're going to hear some things that they're doing that are going to blow your mind. I'm serious. Just from that $50,000 that they have multiplied that already, okay, into about $500,000. Seriously, with connections that they have made with people around the world. Okay, you're gonna hear some things that they're doing, and you're gonna say the seed started, okay, with the opera grant in Brookline, and we need to do more things like that so that they can motivate their children, okay, and get them moving in the right direction in terms of creating careers for their families and so on and so forth. I'm really very proud that we've done that. So with that, I'm going to leave it there, and I want to thank everybody for being so patient and generous.
Thank you, Arthur. I'll just say that I think that points back to Jenny's comment that we need to be more consistent about the criteria and how we're looking at organizations and the criteria for those organizations. And that's a perfect example of that, I think. And that's, thank you. That's all I was going to add.
What if excuse me, what if I told you they already, okay, have had a young man, a high school student from Brookline, actually flying an airplane up 30,000 or whatever it is feet in the air. I'm serious. Okay, I spent half a morning with them from 9 o'clock until 12 o'clock doing what are they, one of those planes that you fly with a battery. What do they call those things?
Death traps?
No, it's
A drone?
a drone. I spent the day, I spent the morning 9 till 12 with a drone. The drone was all the way over someplace near the something tennis club, the Longwood Tennis Club. And we were at they've got you wouldn't believe how that's generated, that 50,000 is generated. They got programs that are going this summer with young people at the the big center, on Tappan Street. Okay, it's just amazing. But anyway, and it started all here.
Thank you, Arthur. And I will say one more thing, which is in terms of the stay in the lane comment. I think that what I value is your expertise. I'm not a transportation expert. God knows I'm not a transportation expert or a planning expert. And even though I work in the race equity space, I don't, Arthur is the race equity expert we brought in here. And so I really appreciate that knowledge, that lens, that experience. And as we go forward, what I want is for us to continue with the process the way it was, with all of us respecting that we're going to be reviewing those first reviews of those proposals based on our areas of subject matter expertise. Unless we have a big objection and we want everyone to review everyone, of course I would listen to that if that's what the committee wants. But my preference is that we continue to focus our initial reviews on the areas that we have the most experience and expertise. And you can email me if you disagree with me, or you can disagree with me right now. I think you all know I can handle it. And with that, I'm going to go to Melissa, and then we'll finish up with Tyler.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. It was a really great process. It was great to be kind of engaged with this group and using the technology that we have to kind of, make sure that everyone could see what we were doing. I will say that put a lot of pressure on Tyler, and I'm sure he'll give us a little bit of feedback about that. And I do appreciate, the effort that he made. In terms of the departmental submissions, that's really the feedback that I have, is that, I think we should be asking departments to rank their priorities with what they submit. And then I also think that, the town administrator, we would be well served getting recommendations from the town administrator on departmental submissions. Especially, we went through a budget process where, we weren't able to accommodate everything. Some of those things turned into ARPA requests, some of them did not. So that's really my only feedback from this point. I'm sure Tyler has a lot, just based on a lot of the work that he's had to grind out, and trying to make it a little easier on him.
Yes. First off, yes, thank you, everyone, because I know this has just been a very cumbersome process at times, but I think it's come out with some really meaningful results, especially as Arthur pointed out. And it's exciting kind of hearing kind of what's coming from this, and already kind of seeing the tangibles, if you will. Like, that was one of the big reasons I went from state government to local, is because I wanted to kind of be closer to that action to actually see the impact. So that's always, I have to put that out there, because I just appreciate hearing that. So it kind of helps me realize why I kind of made this shift. As far kind of shifting to the drier point, though, like as far as the process goes, I really appreciate the point that Jenny brought up about kind of having everyone doing the same thing, whether or not we're dividing it between components of like economic development, transportation, equity, having those lenses, or having everyone score it at the same time, just kind of keeping everyone within the same process. Just because it does make extra work for me to try to include extras or sort of like variations, anything that deviates from how we're doing things, and then try to also make sense of that and explain that to everyone else. I think it just, it makes it easier. I think it'll help with the transparency as well, because there's going to be just less head scratching about like, oh, why is this changed, or why is it specific for this one set of projects? So I think having some uniformity without deviating from the fact that also ARPA is unique in the fact that this is a very broad program. It's not just housing, it's not just infrastructure, it's a lot of, economic development, like economic recovery, public health. So it's also unique in that, just making sure we don't deviate from that or make it too uniform. We don't accommodate for all the variations built within the program. As far as the spreadsheet goes, I actually would agree with Brian's sentiment. Before the inception of this group, we had departmental heads that were sort of, in a way, similar to this group, coming from different areas of expertise to kind of look at each proposal through a very broad lens. We have the tools that are already kind of built out, and I think it's something that might be worth exploring, because we use OpenGov, where we're actually getting those proposals in. We have the capacity to include everyone in this committee on those, so that one, you're getting the notifications when we're receiving the proposals, so you're not just getting like an entire batch at once. You can kind of get a steady stream and start looking at everything as it comes in slowly. I think there's a benefit to that, especially because we're already using it. We use that to receive it, so why not use that to also start scoring? And we can actually build in all of the mechanisms, just like the spreadsheet, to score as well. So I think there's a benefit to that, and it still offers the same capacity for transparency. That would probably be my biggest thing. But if we stick to the spreadsheet just to make sure that it still works for everyone, I'm okay with that.
Can I ask a clarifying question, Tyler?
Yeah.
You're not talking about the scoring sheets. You're talking about the master spreadsheet that we worked with at the end, that had the select board preferences, the committee members that supported or are you talking about the scoring?
I'm talking about the scoring sheet.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. I thought that master spreadsheet was really useful. I'm just talking about how.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. That I should have clarified that. It's the evaluation itself. And I think it gives more time for everyone to look at these as well and ask more questions about these, instead of kind of doing it. We all kind of had to do this very fast in a way, where I think if we have a little bit more time to look at these as they're coming in, I think there's a huge benefit to that.
Can you share what it is with the group so we can all take a look at it?
Yeah, let me get it pulled up. That was just sort of my biggest point, though. Other than that, at the end of the day, this has been an incredibly smooth process. Having worked with a very brand new grant program in the past before, I can say this was astronomically smoother than what I've had to work with in the past. And I appreciate, again, just the effort everyone has put out, and especially because this is a volunteer position, so I appreciate everyone's time for it. So, yeah. And I'll, if you want to give me a second to pull this up.
Yeah, before we knew that there was going to be a committee, we were trying to build in OpenGov a mechanism to do the reviews. But once the committee was established, we the infrastructure is still there, but we went with the easy Excel format.
Yeah.
And Melissa and Tyler, this is something that is no problem sharing, giving access to the public to this segment of OpenGov?
It would work in the same, well, this is already integrated into the same platform as what we're using with the online story.
Okay.
So this is actually, when you look, which that needs to be updated, but when you look at the ARPA, Brookline's ARPA webpage, this is what's feeding that data. It's not live. I still have to manually go in and actually tell it to update, but these are already integrated to a degree. So this is completely transparent.
Okay.
And I'm just using.
I just want to make sure that, first of all, it's open, readily available to the public. They don't have to register or do anything. It's just a matter of coming to a link. But also, we need to make sure that the link is on the homepage of the committee's website.
Yep.
So that people can get to it easily without going and hunting. OpenGov is there's a lot of stuff in there, and you go through a lot of pages when you're looking for things sometimes.
Exactly. This, I would have this brought into the ARPA story so that, people aren't having to jump to 20 different places. That
Yeah,
ARPA story
good.
page is going to be the repository for everything as far as transparency and reporting goes.
All right, good.
And
This is just
can
a tool
you,
instead of an Excel spreadsheet, it would be that, so.
Yeah.
But I mean,
you,
I also, sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I also think we do have varying levels of technological
Yeah.
capabilities. So I'm not sure that this would be, it might be available for those who want to use it. And if people want to, stick with the method used last time, we're going to have to figure that out.
Well, so I would say, can you scroll back to the actual, with the questions that get asked? Is there a way to just download this as the questions as a PDF so we can take a look at them?
So when, yes, so the proposals you saw are actually the PDF of this. This is where that was coming from originally. So that also just, at least for the committee's sake, as they're looking at it, it just saves me the extra step of converting this to a PDF. I'll still have to do that on the back end when we're doing the public reporting and transparency. But at least up front, while we're looking at these things, the committee can actually go in and see everything.
I guess my only concern, or maybe not my only concern, one of my concerns, I like it in theory, but I feel like, I know there are some questions in that spreadsheet that are important for us to consider that are not here. So the question then becomes, do we do this and still have another spreadsheet for scoring that we've somehow fixed or addressed, or some other way for us to contemplate those other questions? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Right? I feel like, back to Jenny's point, that some of that real equity lens stuff isn't here. And
I agree with that. This, and I would need to talk to OpenGov a little bit to see, but this has already been updated a few times since I had started this position and before the inception of this committee. So a lot of these questions, I'm optimistic if, and that's a big if, this is a direction the committee wants to go, there is the capacity to update this to make sure that it is working and it's parallel to how we did this in the past. Just essentially transferring from spreadsheet to here. I would need to still explore that with the OpenGov staff. And there's a lot of ability for us to edit and customize on the back end to get this to match that. But this is flexible and this can be changed to match that.
The last thing you want to do is have two sets of the perfect disaster in an accounting system is when people keep things off in Excel spreadsheets and they get out of sync.
Exactly. It would have to. God.
How much work would it be to have a conversation? Because also I think we want to fix the scoring sheet, but I also think we want to balance out how much effort it would take if we redo everything, or if the way we do the scoring is something that can be modified. So I guess the effort part is on you. So I guess part of it is how much, which one do you think will be less work for you?
So the one thing I want to say is at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I'm accommodating the committee. If it's a big learning curve for everyone, then I don't want to deviate from the process as well. Like, I don't want to introduce something that's different if it creates more confusion or another learning curve issue or anything like that if we've already become familiar with it. I'll say to that point though, the benefit of this is being able to see these proposals though as they come in, having it be more live, if you will, rather than waiting on me to have the time to set up another folder in the SharePoint to put all of these in and figure out who's going to do it. This could be set up to where, if it falls in a category and we want to break it out in a certain way, like if someone pings this as transportation, it would get sent to Brian, or if someone pings it as like economic development planning, it would send to Jenny, so on and so forth. I think there's a lot of customization we could do. to have this where, everyone can look at this a little bit more spread out. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to get input to see how Brian, Jenny, and Arthur feel, since I think Mike and I have expressed our thoughts. And then I'll kick it back to you and Melissa to kind of talk about some more to help decide way forward after you get the input from the rest of the committee. How's that sound?
Yeah, I think Tyler and I need to talk a little bit more. I don't know that this, I think it might be too much effort considering, I think we should probably also have a conversation with OpenGov as well. So
I wanted to bring this forth before we used our time with OpenGov though.
Brian, Jenny, Arthur, what do you guys think?
So yeah, I guess I'll start by saying there's two things. It's as much of an art as it is a science. So you're right, Miriam. There needs to be space to, talk about what it means more so than a purely quantifiable number metric. At the same time, OpenGov seems really clunky to work with in my experience. I would just do a fillable PDF or Excel spreadsheet that's certain rows and columns are blocked and you can't enter into them except for a particular square, and you can only enter a number. But look, I'm not going to micromanage how we do this. I just don't. Tyler, I know this town needs your talents doing lots and lots of things, and I don't think you need to be reprogramming OpenGov for us. So that would be my 2 cents.
Jenny or Arthur, anything to add? Jenny,
I'd
go
be
ahead.
comfortable with, whatever is basically not, burdening staff time and capacity. I mean, that's what I would prefer. So I can adapt to whatever works for staff. I think OpenGov is fine. I think there are limits to it. Maybe you'll find out some more information and that will change things a little bit, but I think I'm comfortable with that. I don't have any problem accessing documents or information this way.
Answer. Thank you, Jenny. You're on mute. Arthur, you're still on mute. Arthur.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm just gonna have a little placard that says you're on mute.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Go ahead.
Listen, I still have some catching up to do in terms of my skills, but I can work with Tyler and accept his area of expertise, okay, to get me to the finish line. So I feel totally comfortable.
Okay. So what I think I'm hearing is that there's just still a lot of unknowns. Tyler and Melissa will regroup, talk to OpenGov, and then come back to us with a recommendation. I think the key is that we have to have some ability to put in some questions and items that are important to us to evaluate. Does that sound good?
That sounds good. I just wanted to gauge the group's thoughts on this before exploring that further, because it does take time. We have time allotted that we pay for with OpenGov to do this stuff. So I didn't want to use that if we were not going to go down this avenue, or explore, I should say, because it may be the case that this does not work. I also don't want to sell this as it's a shoo-in, because it may not be.
I think that, yeah, get a little more information and have a conversation with Melissa, and then the next time we meet, we'll hear from you about what you guys recommend as the best way forward. So, all right. So keeping in mind the time, as you all know I do, unless there's anything else from the committee, I'm going to open up this meeting for public comment. And what I would love to hear for the 4 people who are the three, if any of them have any thoughts about what worked or what we could do to improve the process, we would absolutely love to hear from you. But we'll probably have at least one more meeting, and at that time we'll still open up for public comments, and please encourage everybody, ARPA review. Please send us what worked and what didn't work as we are revamping the process going forward. Do I get to do a Devon? There are 3 people in the waiting room at this time. No one has had their hand raised or indicated that they wish to speak. I'll keep the public comments open for a few more minutes in case somebody comes up with something. In the meantime, anything else from the committee? We might actually end a few minutes early. Oh my God, that's a first. Wait, Brian looks like he wants
Can
to talk.
you just give us a sense of the timeline from here on out?
Melissa?
I think Miriam, Mike, and I need to go through the calendar, plot out when the warrant opens and closes, the budget process, all the different milestones that we have, and then see where the window is. Although the window seems to shrink every year. I think that's part of what we need to do.
I mean, I can say, Brian, it is safely not before summer is off the table, because the other thing I want to do, or we want to do, is actually see how round 1 is going with, basically how it's rolling out, because I do think that'll help us inform round 2 a little bit also. So I think, you guys will have a big break. The next thing for us, Mike, Melissa, and Tyler, we're going to meet again. We have to finalize the slate, the non-competitive slate for the select board. Then we have to have conversations about premium pay. Then we'll roll out but I think we're looking at the very earliest fall, but probably, if anything, late fall, winter. Does that sound about it, right, Melissa?
Yeah, I mean, we basically launched the CIP process in July, launched the operating budget in September. And then, I think maybe after the operating budget is underway, that would probably be a good kind of next phase for solicitation. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to close the public comments. Thank you for those who stayed with us this whole time. Thank you for those who are going to listen to this later. ARPA review at brooklinegov.com. Please email us. It's brooklinemasgov.com.
Yeah,
right?
Brookline Ma.
Thank you. Yes. And if there's nothing else, thank you, Mike, for joining us. We're excited to have you for this round. And thank you all. Please go eat at Cuddy's. I do not get a kickback. I just love their salad.
Thanks,
and
everybody.
happy long weekend, everybody.
Yeah, have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.